welcome back to Memoirs and Some, the podcast. It's your girl, Myia Dominique, and I have my dad in the building, violence prevention specialist, director, coordinator, you name it, he's done it. So I'm going to let him introduce himself before we get into today's episode.
Yes, my name is Toney Raggs, violence prevention specialist. Also a program manager that works for an agency that oversees 4 outreach teams in 6 communities.
Okay, so Daddy, when you say outreach teams, what do that mean? Like, what do you all do? How does that work?
I have a group of guys that's stationed in each community. About 5 to 6 guys in each team that goes out into the community, engage, put out pub ed material about stopping the violence and bringing peace into the community.
Okay. So, Daddy, what made you get into violence prevention? Like, how did this all start? Because that's kind of a dedicated occupation.
Well, I got into this field. It's 41 years now.
Okay.
This past August, my sister was killed, August 16, 1981. And that kind of catapulted me into the work. I didn't come into the work immediately at that point. I came into the work because I began to be grief-stricken, angry, bitter. I became one of those hurt people to hurt people.
Okay.
So after going through a stint of being upset, lashing out at people, and resorting to violence as the answer, I was sent over to a mental health institution on the west side for anger management. And from there, I was put into a youth program as a youth advocate.
Okay.
And that's what started me on my path. That's where I'm at today.
Wow, that's what's up. So, Daddy, if you had to give me maybe I'll say your top 3 the hardest things that come with this job and how you like manage and handle it, because you know it's a lot. You get calls in the middle of the night. You always kind of up moving. It takes up a lot of your time.
The one of the most hardest is the loss of life. Is losing someone, whether they're connected to you, related to you, someone you know, or just a perfect stranger. Every life is important to me.
Absolutely.
And to lose a life and have to respond to an incident where someone is no longer going to be with their family, that's heart-wrenching. That's one of the hardest things to deal with. Because we do this work, we're not exempt from it.
Right, exactly.
So it's always a situation where we're involved one way or another, whether we're connected to the individual or not.
Okay. So, Dad, when you go and do, and so you've climbed kind of like the totem pole, so to speak.
Yeah.
And so I know you used to work with Ceasefire for a while.
Yeah.
How is that different from what you do now, and how did you manage to continue to be so dedicated to get to where you are now with the violence prevention and just the knowledge, being able to go and engage in different communities, with kind of fearless in a way, but being able to still bring that importance too?
It's about having credibility, first off,
Okay.
and being true to the work. Most importantly, true to you as your character. When you do this work, you immediately become a public servant.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always kept the work intact itself in terms of keeping that in the forefront and preserving who I am as a person.
Okay.
My character speaks volume in terms of my reputation, so I tend to my character, therefore my reputation takes care of itself.
Absolutely. So with Ceasefire, is it different than what you're doing now, or is it kind of a step up? Like what's different from where you were originally?
The framework is totally different.
Okay.
It's the same method, the same goal is to reduce violence and to change one's way of thinking in hopes of changing their behavior. But the framework of the work is kind of different in a way. We still go out to the community, engage. We still go out and respond to incidents where shootings may take place or violence per se. And the whole scope of the work is pretty much changing one's way of thinking. It's about changing minds, saving lives.
Okay.
So we provide positive alternatives to youth and adults alike that may be potential victims or perpetrators of violence. Change their way of thinking, so to speak. And if you put something in their hand that can change their way of thinking, it automatically gives them another outlet. It gives them another opportunity or a second chance.
Yeah. So I heard you say you change the way the mind thinks, or changing the person's way of thinking.
Right.
If you had to give me a scenario, and it don't have to be elaborate, but if you show up to a call, what would that look like for you? How does that process kind of go in terms of dealing with the victims, even in their family, so to speak?
Every situation like that is chaotic. There's going to be a lot of high emotions, a lot of, energy, negative and positive energy. But for the most part, it's a lot of chaos. You're dealing with a lot of people's feelings at that point.
Right.
The loss of life is always a situation where, there's misunderstanding, but you have to have empathy. You have to put yourself in that person's situation in terms of what they're going through.
Right.
So you have to always model yourself after what's happening, and not always look at it the way you need to look at it.
Right.
But stay professional at the same time. You have to, like I say, you got to put that stuff in the other individual's place.
Okay. So Dad, what have you learned in this whole, throughout this whole situation of being a violence prevention specialist, excelling? You've gotten some pretty dope and prestigious awards that come with this, this tertiary, so to speak.
Yeah.
That whole area, and then just how vital it is for our communities. You said six
communities.
Okay.
Communities, yeah.
So with that, what have you learned with that? Based off knowing the communities, let's just say if you are with Lawndale, what have you learned that you got to do here that maybe works there? How you split your teams? What you look for, in those team players too, because you need help.
Well, we're all victims of the same situation. The difference is the demographics of how the communities are structured. And so you have to work with individuals that live in the community. Mm-hmm. That's how you shape the mindset of what we're trying to accomplish. You use the individuals themselves to reach the individuals that they know.
Okay.
For myself, for instance, I grew up on the west side, so I always worked in the communities that I was most familiar with.
Okay.
So over the years, I got to know a lot of individuals across the city, so I can go pretty much anywhere.
Right.
Because I've been doing it for so long, I know people all over the city. So I assist other agencies and other partners in the field, based on who I know and the relationships that we build out.
Okay.
So, and I always use myself as a model, as an example, as to what that change looked like. Somebody took me by the hand. So I always use that as a template that, everybody can be saved one way or another, based on their lifestyle.
Absolutely.
If the opportunity is given.
If the opportunity is given.
Yeah.
That is definitely true. So Dad, if you had to give us the award, because I don't know the award that you got, but I know it was a pretty big award, and kind of explain that, what does that mean for what you're doing?
I've got numerous awards. I mean, I can't really put my finger on one per se.
Okay.
The one I just got most recently was a certificate of completion for first responder for basic gunshot wounds.
Okay.
This is the second time I've done that course as a first responder. This one is a little bit more in depth. So in accolades, per se, I've gotten awards for most outstanding outreach worker, or gotten an award for humanitarian awards, things like that.
Absolutely.
So every award has its own merit and it has its own meanings. But at the same time, I look at the work itself as the award for me.
Yeah.
Because it's so rewarding to give back to the community that you was once a part of destroying. So I give back to that in terms of just looking at the generations that came behind me.
Absolutely.
And try to shape and mold those that's following in my footsteps.
Okay. This is my last question. if you had to give us a takeaway about violence prevention and just give us a synopsis on your goal and how you're executing, what would you leave with us?
What would I leave? That what we put out in terms of changing the norm, because the norm has become, the abnormal has become the norm. And to change it is to really look at it in such a way where we can live in peace and harmony, you know, as a people. We can work together collectively as a people. And most importantly, we can reach a common goal without having to be combative, not being destructive toward one another, and just growing together collectively and restoring a community back to a beloved community.
Absolutely. So I had another question I forgot to ask you right today. So being that violence prevention is something that you do and it takes a lot of your time, kind of energy, and just kind of that dedication, how does that affect your daily life? Like as far as your thinking patterns and how you, because Daddy, you got a lot of patience. Like to deal with certain stuff, for this to be your job, you got a lot of patience with stuff.
The two hardest things I ever had to learn in life is patience and to be honest.
Okay.
And those two things help my longevity in the work. If you don't have the patience, you definitely cannot be honest in this work. And I think my honesty speaks volume within the individuals that I work with. I don't lie to them. I don't overpromise and underdeliver. I look at things that's realistic. But the goal is to help each and every individual that you come across.
Right.
And I try not to take the work home. It's impossible because a lot of times, you know, again, we're not exempt from it. So I have relatives that may have fallen victims or prey to the violence. So you got to always stay professional within the work. And most importantly, just try to get that self-care. And self-care is what's most important with doing this type of work. It can be stressful, it can be time-consuming, but most importantly, we have to keep in mind that, you know, we have loved ones that want to get back home to as well.
Absolutely.
So safety is first and foremost. And you never want to be in a situation where you arrive to a situation that's chaotic, that you become a part of that chaos. So we try to mediate conflicts immediately, but we can de-escalate situations where they don't overspill into other areas of the communities. So the work itself, it is demanding.
It is.
So I do a lot of meditation. I do a lot of praying.
Yeah.
I do a lot of reading and writing. And most importantly, with all of that, I try to wrap my mind around delivering positive affirmations or giving positive quotes. If I can give somebody a bit of change with just a couple of words, that helps my day.
Yeah. That's what's up. That is so good. So the episode that I did before this episode was a gunshot victim. She's not considered paralyzed, and I forget the name, forgive me. She has the potential to walk. They have not deemed her where she is officially paralyzed. And when I tell you, I thought it was a good idea to have you follow that episode because she kind of told her story of how, you know, just going through the motions of being shot, you know, just the chaos, what she was thinking, and then to know, like, I have a person, my daddy, who goes and actually deals with these issues. I felt like dang, that would be a great sequence.
Right.
So thank you for coming on and sharing a little something with them about violence prevention. But we definitely need to get in tune with our communities and getting this stuff to be a wash. Letting these kids grow up, letting communities be at peace. Because it's important, you know, our kids gonna grow up and then it's gonna be nothing there. Because everybody killed everybody. Like, what is there gonna be left? So I thank you, Daddy. This was fun. You liked it?
I appreciate it, and I love it. You know, being in this work, I mean, you all look at my safety as one of the things that keeps me going. You know, I got to keep that in front of my head when I'm out in the community dealing with such situations, because we have to always remember that somebody's loved by somebody.
Right. Yeah.
And,
Somebody.
in order for us to make the change, we have to be the change we want to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, y'all heard it here first. You got to be the change you want to be. It always goes down on Memoirs and Some, the podcast. I'm your girl, Myia Dominique, and we out for the night.
Peace and blessings.